A rain bomb of atomic proportion has exploded over Victoria, leaving thousands of homes across the state inundated by floodwaters. Regional townships are receiving support from the Australian Defence Force, while up to 500 homes around the inner city suburb of Flemington have been left devastated by the catastrophic event. But the Spring Racing Carnival is set to kick off at the famous Flemington racecourse, spared from flooding by a government-approved floodwall built by the Victorian Racing Club over 10 years ago. And that means a return to the glitz and glamour of the Melbourne Cup, for those lucky enough not to be bucketing floodwater out of their lounge rooms. Christina Solich begins our coverage.
And it's very elegant. 10 Group 1.
It's the race that stops a nation. Melbourne's biggest party set to take over the dry, pristine lawns of the Flemington racecourse once again. Up to 90,000 socialites, alcoholics and problem gamblers ready to kick up their heels thanks to the VRC and state government's decision in 2007 to erect this huge flood wall around the 1.3 square kilometre floodplain the racecourse was built on. CEO of Racing Victoria, Andrew Jones, told Channel 9's Today Show that while the flood wall has created a difficult situation for nearby residents, he was ultimately pleased with the decision.
VRC took steps to flood-proof or flood-protect its property, which it's entitled to do. That's obviously had unintended consequences for neighbouring residents.
Of course, racing is a winner's game, and with a turnover of $1.88 billion from wagering last year, taxed at 10% by the Labor government, it's no surprise that all measures have been taken to safeguard the Melbourne Cup, no matter what the circumstance. And while there were a few party-pooping protesters opposed to the construction of a flood wall so close to their houses, most Melburnians adopted a more laid-back approach to the decision.
Those protesters can't even get the basics right. Floodplains get flooded. You're the VRC. You made $172 million in revenue last year, and you own a venue that hosts a racing carnival turning over $724 million in 4 days. You're definitely going to be walling off that racecourse. I mean, they could probably finish Trump's wall too.
Well, I'm very sorry for all the flooded peoples, but I love the racing. You wear something sexy, you have the champagne, you bash the hot boys in the toilet, and maybe if I win some monies, I go buy those flooded people a coffee or something.
So while it may be a sad time for some, Melbourne's spring priorities are as apparent as ever.
Floodwaters are threatening racecourses right across the state, but the main focus in Melbourne today, of course, will be the Caulfield Cup. Fingers crossed that everything is going to be okay for the Spring Racing Carnival.
Ready to go.
And with the racecourse as dry as a martini, all is set for the 162nd running of the Melbourne Cup, the equal 67th best Group 1 horse race in the world. Christina Solich, INN News.
The Andrews government has backed an investigation into the impact the Flemington floodwall has had on nearby residents currently underwater. The investigation will be conducted by Melbourne Water, which is owned by the Victorian government and chaired by John Thwaites, who was Deputy Victorian Premier and Water Minister for Labor when they approved the wall in 2007. And to ensure a favourable outcome for the government, Nick Wimbush will lead the investigation after his stellar work preventing a review of Labor's Westgate Tunnel project, currently $4.1 billion over budget, from being released publicly. Good choice.